Protests are expected in the UK next week as cases of more than 15 people fighting deportation under the controversial Rwanda-U.K. policy are due to start. Under the policy, migrants who arrive illegally on British shores should be flown 4,000 miles away to Rwanda for resettling. The move has been widely criticized. For more on the story, I'm now joined by Fredson Guilengue, the Regional Senior Program Manager at Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. Good to have you on the program this afternoon. Firstly, give us some background information about the case of the more than 15 people who are fighting their deportation under this controversial Rwanda deportation policy.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me. Okay, so first, in April this year, the Rwandan government and the UK government signed a memorandum. So, as per this memorandum, people, asylum seekers, whose cases are not being considered by the United Kingdom government, will be relocated to Rwanda, where the process will be analyzed, and if they actually have a strong case, then they might be granted asylum in Rwanda, or maybe also there's also possibility of getting a job and so on and so on. But there's a much bigger picture if you look properly on that. But we're talking about a British government that is a conservative government, and remember the Brexit. What was really behind the Brexit was the idea that, our country is being flooded by illegal migrants, so we need to get our power. We need to get our power back so we can control our own borders. So on one side, you have the British government here sticking to its anti-migration policy, because this is exactly why they've been elected. And you can see now the elections coming. There's a crisis within the Conservative Party, Boris Johnson having to go and being replaced, and so and so. But on the other side, you have the Rwandan government who is trying to portray itself as not so anti human rights regime as it is seen outside, to the extent that we provide a safe shelter for refugees. People are not being allowed space to live in Europe, but also we have good friends of Western governments. So this is you see two governments here, two different policies, but using the very same crisis as we see.
Let's get a bit of a forecast now. What is expected as these legal teams gear up for the matter to be heard in court next week?
Well, I'm not a legal expert. I don't know what's going to come out as per the legal process as such. But what I can tell you is that there is a lot of mobilization against that. Something that's very interesting about it is that even a very strong trade union and a confederation of trade union organizations in the UK, the one that actually includes 80% of Home Affairs workers are actually against this scheme. This policy of the government. So you can see that there is the resistance against this, but obviously within the conservative part of not only the conservative government, within the conservative membership, but also the conservative part of the society, some people actually are for this, because I have to tell you that this migration thing, if you watch the mainstream media, watching people trying to cross the border on the oceans and so on with boats and so on, it's very easy to convince people who are actually less informed that the country is being flooded by migrants. So, for example, this year alone, although numbers have increased compared to the other years, some talk about 8,000 so-called illegal migrants arriving in Britain or in the UK. So some people have that sentiment that the country is being flooded, but it's not true. It's not the reality. The reality is that there's no immigration crisis in the UK. There's actually need for a lot of a lot of people coming to help work, and Brexit actually provided for more jobs available for a lot of people to do those jobs. But then there is another dimension for those who actually criticize strongly this scheme, is they're sending the people to a regime that is known to violate human rights. South Africa knows Rwanda for persecuting the so-called dissidents of the Rwanda regime, or people who contest Kagame's regime or the way he's running the country, and so on and so on. But sending people to that island, to Rwanda, is not seen. It's not regarded as a positive move by human rights organizations, including, like I said, trade unions organizations in the UK per se.
Now, in extension to the last remark that you made, give us your general view about the arguments being made by lawyers arguing that the policy is indeed xenophobic and in violation of international refugee statuses.
It is indeed. This is also my perception, because look at what's happening with refugees from Ukraine. The refugees from Ukraine are not having the same treatment as refugees from elsewhere. Refugees from Africa, refugees from Asia, refugees from Afghanistan, refugees from Iraq, and other countries are not having the same treatment as the refugees from Ukraine are having. For example, Europe is open to refugees from Ukraine. They have the rights to job immediately as they arrive. If they want to stay permanently, they can, and so on and so on. They are not having their processes dealt with in other countries, as you see what they're doing, what some Western countries, including the UK, is doing to refugees from other countries than Ukraine. So this is an unfair treatment. It's not the same treatment. And the war in Ukraine has disclosed some of these issues to the extent that, on the other side, us Africans, we feel that, we don't have the same treatment as white Christians and Western refugees or asylum seekers, which becomes very clear from this conflict in Ukraine. I think in this perspective, the lawyers have got a very strong argument, because even the European Court of Human Rights, it actually thanks to the European Court of Human Rights, but that first deportation was blocked in June, and now we hope to hear from a British court. I think they have a strong case.
Right.
This is me, a lawyer, like I said at the beginning, but I feel like they have a very strong case.
And as we wrap up our conversation, the series of anti-deportation groups across the UK, where these demonstrations are indeed set to take place, is it just going to be a series of demonstrations just in the UK, or will we see similar pickets elsewhere?
It's possible that we will see some similar pickets elsewhere, but I doubt that we will see the same in Rwanda itself, because of the kind of the regime that we have that doesn't allow for public demonstrations as such, and free organizing and so on without fear of repercussions. But I believe that in other countries, like maybe in France or in other Western democracies, we might see some people demonstrating. But it all depends on how this is going to actually evolve in the UK itself. It depends on what the courts are going to say. It depends on how people are going to demonstrate around it. We might or we might not see, also because we should not forget that most of the global attention today is in the conflict in Ukraine, and not so much in the question of refugees or other wars happening elsewhere. So there are a lot of dynamics there that we need to take them into account.
But would you say there's been an overwhelming response to this plight in support of these refugees?
Yes, at least within the UK, there's been an overwhelming response in support of the refugees, because obviously not everybody likes the the Conservative government. Not everybody likes the idea of sending the people to a regime that is not a democratic regime. It's known as a regime that violates the human rights. So I think these demonstrations, or the organizers of this demonstration, really have a very strong point. So it's not just there are specific, very concrete groups organizing these demonstrations in a number of places in the UK, and they do have a very strong point, like I was trying to say.
Fredson Guilengue, he's the Regional Senior Program Manager at the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, also giving us some insight on those planned demonstrations in the UK next week. Now, Operation